Well, good morning and welcome to my tench venue. This may well be my last tench trip of the year. The alarm went off at 3 AM and the rods are out. I had them out just before 5. I've had a couple of indications already, but I'm pretty much know that they're from unwanted species, being eels. Small bootlaces, they clear your hooks. I don't know how we don't hook many, but yeah, first light you normally get a few indications of eels. Now again, I'm here really early. It's probably gonna hit 30 degrees later in the day, so I'm only gonna fish till probably about 10 o'clock, get up here early, miss the traffic on the way home. But 30 degrees, clear skies, high pressure, not good for tench fishing. But what I've learned up here is if you're gonna get a bite, it's probably in these conditions, it's probably going to be in the morning, or more likely 9 times out of 10 the bites are going to come in the morning. We have fished the nights here and we haven't had a tench during the night. We've only had one in the evenings after 4 o'clock, but I did have a spell a couple of about 10 days ago where we had 4 rods out. I was fishing with my fishing buddy Chris. He had 2 rods on the right of the swim, I had 2 on the left. And this rod here, the right hand rod, kept ripping off, and I think I had 7 runs in about 90 minutes, starting at about 1 o'clock. It was quite bizarre. We were just looking at each other going, what is going on? And they resulted in, I think I had 7 runs, 6 tench. Not too sure at the moment what the biggest is. I think it was a 9. We had quite a few 8s and 9s. I did have one about 4 pound, and somebody said on this lake catching a 4 is like catching, you're just as likely to catch a 12 pounder as you are a 4 pounder. So it's nice to see some small fish in the lake coming through as well. There's not a lot of other species. There's a few carp in here to around the 50 pound mark, but not many. It's a hell of a venue, a vast venue, and it's rock hard now. I call it the beast as well. On my Instagram I refer to it as the nature of the beast, because it can be really kind to you, it can be really cruel to you. Chris did 2 sessions for 2 fish. He had a lovely carp the other day on the Kebab, the worm Kebab. Not a big fish, but catching a carp out of here is rare and some achievement. And I had 1 tench that day, and it was 2 ounces off a double-figured tench. So, and that session lasted for about 30 hours. But again, we were fishing through the night. I didn't actually fish through the night. I went home, had to do some meds on the pets, came back first light, so I was fishing at the best time of the day. But it can be cruel, but it can also be kind. There's a couple of tench roll. One has just rolled 2 or 3 rod lengths out, and a couple rolled earlier when I got here. Not over my marks, but they're moving. We've got, I would say this is a southeast wind pushing here. It was 17 degrees when I got up. But as I said earlier, we haven't done many sessions up here, but every time we've come up here, we've caught tench when we've been up this end of the lake. I did do a couple of sessions down earlier in the season, down just mornings down at the other end of the lake, and on both occasions I saw tench, but I didn't have a pickup. So as I said, it's not always kind. It can be really cruel. But up here, 1 bite in the morning is good. Anything else is a bonus. Now, I'm not really expecting to catch today. We're going through this really hot period. It is pretty much the longest day of the year now, but I have this place pretty much to myself, because all the tench anglers, kingfishers flying about, most of the tench anglers that are on here, and I haven't seen that many this year, are now on the rivers, fishing for chub and barbels. So I'm still here because I'm still catching. There's a chance of an absolute fish of a lifetime here. We've had them to over 10 pound in the past, and I know it's done a couple that have been considerably bigger this year, but they have spawned out now, so those fish are going to be back to their pretty much down in weight, or getting back to their normal weight. So as I said, I'm going to fish till 10 o'clock. Hopefully one of these will rip off and I'll have a nice tench to show you. But as I said, we caught a few more, so you will see a few of those throughout this video. I'm also fishing the worm Kebab. my standard approach here, and I'm fishing it slightly different to my last video, so that's why I'm back here, just to give you a few little tips and show you the alterations that I've made. Okay, let's just quickly do a refresher on bait application. This swim, we're not fishing a million miles out. I'm not going to say how many wraps out we are, because me and Chris spent about 3 hours a few mornings ago, or a couple of weeks ago, cleaning an area off with a little gardener weed rake. If you haven't got one, make sure you get one. They are invaluable. Even if you've only got a little bit of weed, you can just put it on the end of, tie it to the end of the rod. Don't put your spot on there, just take your spot off, tie a little rake on there. You can cast it out using a 3-pound test curve rod. I've got 18-pound line on here. Cast it out, hit the clip, and just drag it back. And we spent, I reckon we did about 250 casts. I had bruises on the inside of my leg where I was like winding in this weed, but we managed to clear an area out in front of this swim, about, just sort of carp lump out right in the middle. Clear an area off, a strip off, which was about 25 yards wide and probably a rod length, you know, by one rod length. And we were able to drop our baits on there and actually be confident that those rods were actually, you know, fishing effectively, and our results showed that. As I said, the great thing is I'm coming back. I keep, you know, a couple of times a week. We've been coming back, putting a bit more bait out there, fishing it. I did take the rake out there the other day and just clean it off a little bit more, but there wasn't a great deal out there. But to the right of me, the weed is right up on the surface. So you've got to pick your spot, you've got to prepare your spot, and then you've got to keep fishing those. Hopefully nobody else will see you doing it and go in and know where you're fishing. And, you know, those fish should keep coming. Again, this morning when I got here, I did 6 spod loads. The reason I'm using a spod here is it's not very deep out there and the water is gin clear. So the last thing I want is a spom going, making all that noise out there and potentially spooking the fish. So just this morning, 6 of these went out, and in that I'm just using a mix of the dynamite, frenzied hemp. I've got some dead reds in there, because on the worm kebab, as you know, if you've seen my last video, I secure my worms on using 2 buoyant casters. So I like to put some dead reds in there, some hemp, some chopped worm. I've got some robin red sort of 2mm pellets, and I just dampen that down with the hemp oil and spod that out. 6 of those, that's just enough to get a bite hopefully this morning. I've also, you know, when you're fishing the worm kebab, it's nice to have a nice kind of organised workstation. I've got a little bait box here where I can chop a load of worms to go in my feeder. I don't use the worm scissors like the 3-bladed scissors, because I find they get really clogged up and you've got to keep cleaning them. Just an old pair of half decent kitchen scissors. I've got a little water bowl there that when I'm putting the worms on, I can just clean the fingers off to see that small bait stop on that caster, just to secure the worm kebab on. And obviously I've got a bait box there for the worms that I can actually put on the hair. So nice and organised, but very important to be organised when you're using worm kebab. It is messy, and having that little bait box of water is really good to wash your hands off and just keep nice and clean. Well, I mentioned earlier, soon after casting out, I had a couple of indications, and I know that the eels can just strip you of your baits here without or very rarely being hooked. So I'm just sitting there, it's like only half an hour into the session, and I'm thinking I can't sit there. That's gone beep 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 a few times now, and I've wound in, and as you can see, absolutely no worms on that kebab there at all, just 2 buoyant casters. How the hell they do it, I do not know, but that's one of the reasons, you know, at night time you don't get a lot of tench, because half the time you haven't got any bait on. But I do find here that first hour in the morning you do get a few eel problems. So don't sit there after you've had a few bleeps. It only takes, you know, a couple of minutes to get that rod in, check it, refresh it and get it back out there. Well, many of you will be thinking, why has Duncan come away from using the helicopter rigs that he has promoted in previous videos? And although I'm 100% confident using the helicopter rig in most of the venues I fish, on the big pit, this big open, you know, windswept venue of over 100 acres, there's a lot of other different dangers and problems that you're going to occur on that. So I'll just run through basically quickly. If I'm using a helicopter rig, in most cases on the smaller pits, on the Farnham pits that I fish, I'm using a fluorocarbon hook link. Now, a fluorocarbon hook link isn't going to stand up to a zebra mussel. It's just going to go boom, gone, snapped, you know, cut off straight away. And although a braided hook link is going to get cut off as well, it just gives you a little bit more security that it isn't going to happen as easily. So I've come away from using the fluorocarbon hook links and I'm using a braided hook link. Now, if I use a braided hook link on a helicopter rig, what you'll find is the worm kebab is a heavy bait, and the boom doesn't work as well. It dangles and hangs down right where your main line, or in this case a leader, is, and sometimes when you're winding you find it's tangled and you've been sitting there for maybe an hour, 2 hours or longer with a bait that's not presented. I want to actually try and avoid that at all costs. So I've come away from using the helicopter rig because I'm not using the fluorocarbon hook link that is almost tangle free, and I'm using a braided hook link. So to avoid the tangles, what I've done is I'm using a more of a carp style inline feeder semi-fixed bolt rig. I'm using a leader. The leader that I'm using is a 1 meter. It's a Gardner Camflex leader. It just gives me that little bit of line pinned down on the deck behind my feeder, potentially where those zebras are and those bits are. I know my main line is a bit behind, but I want to try and just, you know, pin that down and avoid those zebra mussels at all costs. Onto that leader, I've got a Drennan 70 gram. This is I always have to look at these, a block end bolt 70 gram feeder inline. That goes on to the leader. If you want to know how to get these on the leader, it's pretty simple. You just thread it onto your main line first, then tie your leader on, and then pull your feeder back, because trying to get a leader through one of these is nigh on impossible. And then I use a little quick link swivel there so I can change my hook link quite quickly. I might want to change from a T rig to a worm kebab or vice versa, or even a different rig, but in this case it just allows me, if I've got a blunted hook, which actually happens quite a bit on this pit because of the nature of the beast as I call it, I can just put a new hook link on really quick and you know, get that rod back out feeding when potentially that feeding period is. Hook link is about 7 inches and it's made up of the smokescreen core and micro braid 15 £. On the smaller pits with no zebra mussels, I'll take that down to a 10 £. hook link, but as I said, in this case my rod has gone from a 125 to a 175. My main line here, I bought some really good Fox line, it's £12, but the other day I had a snag, I was pulling back and it was the hook link that went. It's £12, it's about £6 something a spool for 1,000 metre, and I didn't want a fine diameter line, I wanted something with a bit of abrasion resistance. I could have gone up to £15 line, but then you're starting to cast that through a 175 rod isn't, you know, very advisable, I would say. So all it is just thinking about the environment, not getting tangles, which braid and the helicopter rig is. So I'm casting out, presenting that bait well. We've also got the odd pike there that we've caught on the big pit. The braid just gives you a little bit more security, that it won't just bite you off straight away. You've got the chance of getting that fish in the net. And we also have eels there, so again, on the fluorocarbon hook links you're more likely to get that eel bite you off and leave a hook in the eel, whereas the braid you're more likely to land that eel. But the eels we have on the big pit, I don't know how big they are. I know Chris had one about £2 a few years ago, and there are some bigger ones in there, but we don't tend to hook them very often. They just tend to nibble all your bait away and you just come back with 2 casters. So again, why am I not using the helicopter rig? I'm just thinking about the environment that I'm fishing in, the problems that the surround the fishing on that venue, and reducing the the chances of one, tangles, and two, being cut off or bitten off. Top tip for the day: when you buy the Drennan block end bolt feeders, these are the 70 gram ones, what puts me off is they're really shiny. I've also got the price labels on. So in this water it's really clear, and on a bright day or any day that light will come in, penetrate through there, and you might just get a bit of kind of shine or flash back off this really shiny feeder. And one of my customers the other day, who's an engineer, actually said to me the reason it's nice and shiny is it will come out of the mould a lot easier. But the first thing I do when I get these home is I get a scouring pad. In fact, I get one of the wire, kind of metal wire scourers, and I actually rub them right the way down all over, scuff them up, just to dull them all down, just to remove that potential risk of spooking those fish with that sunlight, reflecting off this feeder. So a little tip, just to give you that extra little bit of confidence, really. Well, it's just after 6. Can't say my casting has been very good today, but I'm literally got the rods out. Both the first couple of casts I wasn't happy with because I had a few bleeps on it, and I wound them in. I had no bait on at all, completely clean from eels. Put them back out there, saw a tench roll over the spot, and then at a drop back I thought eels again, and then off it ripped. And this one I actually thought was an eel at certain times because it went in all the weed beds. Very strange one with a lot of kind of like red pigment on it. Just over £7. I've not even been here an hour. A few tench moving out there, a few carpet distance, but yeah, absolutely made up with that. Just over £7, a little one for here. I want something quite a few pound bigger if possible. Well, it's coming up to 9:45. I'm not going to give it much longer. Ever since that first bite at 6 o'clock this morning, I haven't had even a single bleep, but bites on this sort of venue can come out of the blue at any time. Saying that, I did have something happen to the other rod when I was playing that fish. I might have had a tench get away with it, or an eel come in and peck at my baits. But yeah, the temperature's on the rise. As you can see, I've got over 100 acres of water behind me, and there's not a ripple, there's not a breath of air, not a cloud in the sky, and temperatures are forecast to go up to something like 30 degrees today. Coming away with a fish every session from this venue, you've got to be happy with that. I always say any more than one is a bonus on a session. So I've got one, I'm not going to go home with the bonus, but I've got to be happy with that 7-pounder, because every bite is just getting closer to that big fish. The next bite on this venue could be a 10, 11, 12, even bigger than that. So all the time the bites are coming, I'm happy. I might come back for another session when the weather change. I'm not going to come back in this mini heat wave. Wait for the weather to change, but I don't want to leave it too long because I want to keep some bait going out there and keep those spots clear if possible. If you're interested in a guiding day, coming out for a day's fishing with me, then please get in touch. I can't bring you to this venue, but I've got plenty of gravel pits close to my home where we can, put not just one, but maybe a few more than that in the net for you. As you've seen, or you can see from the photos coming up now, I've had a lot of very happy customers, and I had a really good tench spring really this year, when I know a lot of people have really struggled on other waters. So if you fancy a guiding day next spring, get in touch now. I'll send you some details. Email me, send you some details, some cost and what a day consists of, and then I can put you on a list, and then I can then get in touch with you early next year, just when I'm starting to think about that. So yeah, I hope you got a few tips there, just tiny things like buffing that, taking the shine off that feeder, when you're fishing in really clear water, in shallow water on a bright day like this, you know, it's those tiny little edges that put more fish on the bank. The little, you know, the other thing is why I'm not using a helicopter rig and why I've converted over to fishing a more kind of like carp style for the tench, you know, just to make it a little bit easier, changing hook lengths and changing over to a different approach if needed. So yep, hope you like the video, just a short one this time. Please subscribe, hit the subscribe button, they keep the videos coming. Make some comments and give it the thumbs up. So but as for now, looking forward to going out at Frensham. If you fancy a guided day in Frensham, July is a good month, so I've got a few days available. Get in touch, email me, and then you can come and join me at Frensham and hopefully put not just one but put quite a few tench in your net. See you very, very soon.